Most traders backtest a strategy only to find out that when they go to apply it in the live market, their results are nothing like the ones they saw in backtesting. Maybe their win rate's lower, maybe they're not even profitable, even though their results were profitable in backtesting. Some people say this is due to psychology, and that undoubtedly does play a part, right? But I think the main issue is that most people are testing recent price action. The problem with testing recent price action is that it's very biased data, because you're going to know what the higher time frame direction is and where price reacted to on the higher time frame. So in today's video, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going all the way back to 2020 to backtest gold over the 2020 price action. I'm going to be giving you guys my full trading plan and walking through the full strategy as well. And this is the same strategy we recently used over the 2021 price action on gold over an entire year worth of data. We had a 57% win rate in total using a mechanical 1-to-3 risk-to-reward ratio system and using my 5-step mechanical process. And that's the same system we're going to be testing today, but over the 2020 price action. So guys, let's not waste any more time. Let's head right over to the charts and let's get straight into it. Right guys, so thanks for joining me here over on the charts. We'll get right into it, and as I said, we're going to be back testing from the beginning of 2020 in this session and just going through the 2020 price action. So first thing I've noticed here on the charts is that we've had price overall being in this uptrend, and then we've had this correction, right? Quite a slow corrective pullback. Then price reacted from this area of daily demand, and now we've seen it kind of present this clear bullish structure once again, heading back towards the previous highs in an overall uptrend, right? So what I would be looking for here, if we jump over to lower time frame, is essentially just more longs. You can see here on the 4-hour, once we had price tap into this daily demand, we had our initial shift back bullish. Buys here would have been quite nice, maybe from this 4-hour demand. Price then continues over, creates this very clear bullish structure and continues with that overall bullish momentum, right? Now, one of the things that I like to emphasize to the guys inside VIP is that whenever you have price in this overall parabolic bullish trend with all of this momentum, you might be tempted to identify some of these areas down here, for example, as a point of interest. But when price, particularly on gold, is moving like this with this very kind of, you know, momentum, this very textbook bullish volume, it's very unlikely to pull all the way back down to one of these regions. So what we should do instead is kind of look at this more recent price action and just go from that, right? So on the hourly time frame in particular, we've had this breaker structure. We've then seen price pull back. So what I'd be looking for here is for price to sweep this inducement potentially into this area. This will be my first point of interest. So let's see if price can push down into that level. Okay, no. So instead, we just had another breaker structure, right? What I'm looking for now, again, just adapting to this new breaker structure. I'm now looking between the low and the high of the new trend leg. If we jump over to lower time frames just for a bit more clarity, we could potentially look at this area of demand right here. Let's have a look. Obviously, always waiting for confirmation within one of these regions, not just blindly buying or selling from them. And one other tip for you guys as well, I see a lot of people make this mistake where if price is in an overall bullish market, they'll see this as a change of character. How I would personally see this in a bullish market though is instead just a sweep of liquidity. Obviously when price is going to pull back on higher time frame, it's going to break some of this lower time frame structure. But in a bullish market, like I said, I would just view this as a sweep of previous liquidity for higher prices rather than as a reversal. So here what I'm looking for is for price to break structure to the upside and give us that indication that it wants to continue higher. Right, there we go. So we've had price break structure right here. Before this candle played out, this was an area of imbalanced demand. So this is a perfectly valid trade. I'm going to enter from here. In this case, I'm going to have stops just below this wick because I'm thinking if it breaks that area, it's probably just going to go for this low again. So there's no point having stops all the way down here. And as always, you guys know, mechanical 1-to-3 TP to help remove any of the uncertainty and discretion in terms of where we're targeting. So nice, we're tagged into this trade. Let's see how it plays out. Demand is holding so far. And like I said, when gold is in a kind of scenario like this, where it's just continuing to rally with a lot of momentum, you're not anticipating a bigger pullback. So yeah, there we go. We've had this small retracement down on higher time frame, and then price pushed over and hit our TP. So great first trade of the session. We've now had another breaker structure right here. So once again, just looking for more retracements to continue buying. And what I'm going to do here as well, just so I know when the liquidity target is hit, which in this case is this current trend high on daily time frame, you can see that once price has tapped into this demand, held the demand, we're kind of seeing price gravitate up towards that level. This isn't an area I would be interested in selling from. I just want to know when it's taken out, because then we can focus on, you know, maybe seeing a pullback on a higher time frame. But yeah, in the meantime, just looking for more buying opportunities essentially. Again, gold continuing up with all of this momentum, so just kind of expecting smaller retracements here. Let's see if it actually retraces. Maybe we could see a reaction to this demand here. All right, there we go. Let's have a look on M5. Yep, nice. So M5. Notice how this is kind of like a mirror image of the situation we had before, where we caught that win and buy, where we've had this, which looks like a change of character. But again, bullish market, we're seeing it as a sweep. We've had price then change character to the upside. One other thing as well, what helps me to identify whether this is a change of character or a sweep is by looking at lower time frames. So if you see a sweep and then lower time frame shift bullish again like this, is typically going to be a sweep rather than a change of character. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look to enter in a discount of this imbalance. 1 to 3 mechanical TP again, and let's see if price pulls back for us. All right, there we go. We're tagged in. One other mistake I see a lot of people making as well is that, for example, they would refine their entry to this area of demand. I don't like doing that because particularly with a pair like gold, it very rarely pulls back that far. So you kind of have to trade it a bit more aggressively. And typically what I'll do on gold is I'll enter on the whole imbalance that was created prior to the change of character. And in this case as well, notice how it reacted to the last bit of liquidity. This wick here was the last liquidity before this imbalance. It was taken out twice, then price is now reacting to it. So could come back into the demand, but like I said, I would rather get this entry rather than miss out on the trade completely, just because I was being trying to be too precise and get those so-called sniper entries that people waffle on about. I personally don't do that. It just doesn't really make sense to me. So nice reaction so far. Let's see if it continues. All right, if I wasn't in this initial buy, I would also be looking for another buy from this region, obviously with more confirmation. Right, okay, so the TP hit on that one, obviously no confirmation from this area, price just continued to rally. What we've seen now as well, we can delete all of this because this is the internal structure. We've now actually seen price break and close above this main daily trend high, right? So at this point, maybe we could see a pullback, but I'm not really interested in selling this. I would just wait for the pullback to end and then capitalize on more longs. Personally, this doesn't really make much sense to sell against this. I believe this might have been the all-time high for gold at the time back in 2020. So yeah, essentially just looking for more retracements, maybe from... I would see what happens once this gap is filled. You can see we've had this market open gap. This whole region kind of corresponds with that gap fill. So let's see what happens if price can do that. If we jump over to lower time frames as well. Let's see, can we get a trade from here? There's not really anything high probability there, to be honest. Especially after a huge move like this, you would expect price to retrace a little bit. I would also here monitor. This is a bit of a weird scenario because we obviously have this market gap. I imagine though, if you kind of correlate this with other brokers, this would be a liquidity level because it's the last kind of low candle body before this imbalance. Obviously, so some of the brokers don't have gaps. I think FXCM on TradingView doesn't tend to have gaps. It just like fills the gap. So maybe we could see long straight from here. Let's have a look. Obviously, as always, need a confirmation first. So if it can close above this would be a valid change of character. At the moment, we've only seen a wick above, so it's not quite valid for me. Right, there we go. Now we've seen a closure above. We have this area of discounted demand. I'm going to set my limit on this area. Stops a little bit below. 1 to 3 TP. Oh, that's going to be annoying. Has this missed us? Yeah, it looks like it's missed us by like 1 pip. Very annoying. Let's see if it comes back. The limit is still valid at the moment, so I'm going to keep it. Damn. So no, missed us by like a pip, then flew. Slightly annoying, but you know, sometimes that happens. All right, we've seen another break structure. I do want to be careful here because this low technically induced this area of demand. So we could maybe see price come back down and grab this low before higher prices. We also now have as well this demand. Maybe price wants to come back into there. I'm not really seeing anything in between though, so gonna wait for this region. All right, so it didn't react to the demand, but it has swept the demand. This is one of the things I go on about inside VIP as well, is that whenever price sweeps these areas of higher time frame supply and demand, it will typically always give a reaction to it. So that's when you kind of want to be paying extra attention. At the moment, we have not seen a confirmation, so let's play price on a bit. Okay, no, so in this case, price is continuing lower. Next point of interest is this original demand. Like I said before, we've had price sweep this low. Again, I would not view this as a change of character, just because if you look on higher time frame, it's very clearly in this bullish trend. So the chances are this is not a complete reversal. This is probably just a pullback. So let's have a look how price reacts to this region. Obviously with confirmation, let's jump over to the M5. So I need to see a break above this high first. Yeah, I'll play this on M15 so it's a bit quicker. No, so again, price continuing a bit lower. This could be interesting. So like I was saying previously, notice how price has now swept this area of demand rather than holding it. So this is typically when you're going to see a reaction. The only thing with this one is that in order for a confirmation, we would need to see price come all the way up to this high. So either price regrabs this low, then gives a change of character, or we see it come up into these highs. Let's see which one of those happens. All right, so we've kind of seen I'm actually considering more sells here. Reason for that is, you know, we have kind of seen some intent below this liquidity, right? I said previously I would view this as a sweep, but based on how this has come down, you can see it came down with quite a lot of momentum, very clearly closed below that 4-hour structure. It's now come up, grabbed this high. I'm just kind of liking how, notice how this retracement we're seeing is quite slow and corrective rather than price showing any intent above the structure. We've also had, once that structure was swept, we've had our change of character back down. So let me just see how this develops. Yeah, so if price can pull back into this supply, I'm going to set a limit. We've already had our confirmation. We've had price grab the high, give a change of character. We've got some inducement resting below this supply zone as well. So I'm going to set my limit here and have a 1 to 3 TP as usual. Notice as well here, like if you were trying to buy, there's not really anything here to buy from, which is another confluence I sometimes use. All right, no, so we didn't get a pullback, but analysis played out perfectly, as you guys can see. We've now also seen a sweep of this opposing liquidity. I'm going to monitor closely to see how it reacts to this, because again, higher time frame overall bullish. I was expecting this just to be a retracement. And notice how now we've had sweep of the low, re-grab of the low, so and price is trading within this imbalance. So if we see price present a change of character here, I'll consider buying. At the moment, I would need to see a close above this one. Yeah, like that. That's perfect. So we've seen a change of character after the liquidity was swept. We have, let me just play price on a bit. Yeah, in terms of entries on this one, I'm going to enter on, notice how we have this imbalance here. So I'm going to enter on the last bit of liquidity before that imbalance, which is this wick. Stops below the low, 1 to 3 TP. Bit more of a swing trade, but that's fine. Let's see if it pulls back for us. Nice, there we go. So we're tagged into this. Notice where it reacts from as well, guys. This is a massive tip. Instead of entering from the demand zones, enter from the last bit of liquidity, right? There you go. So notice how pinpoint that was. Last bit of liquidity taken, price then rallies to the upside. Nice, there we go. So TP hit on that one. Very clean trade. Idea behind that one, by the way, like I said, was we saw price come down in this overall bullish market, swept the demand, re-grabbed the low, and then we saw price shift back bullish. Next idea. So following this structure, we've had price retrace into demand. That would have been a nice trade opportunity, but we were already in that initial trade. We've now seen it break structure again, just here. So looking for a retracement. I can't really see a clear POI here, so let me play price on a bit. Maybe from this, it's not technically imbalanced, but it's a clear area of demand in a discount. Alternatively, maybe, actually, yeah, this whole region here is like an hourly demand in the range. Maybe we could see a reaction out of this. Yeah, there we go. Notice as well, it swept this inducement just above it. So this is looking pretty nice. Let's see if it can break this high for a confirmation. Yeah, so it did just close above. So again, entering on the imbalance itself rather than over refining into this area of demand. I'm going to enter on this whole region. This was the change of character, by the way, just here. If you zoom in, it did close above it. So stops below the low. We'll enter on this area. 1 to 3 TP. Let's see. Nope. So first loss of the session now. It's still within this area of demand. So I'll consider getting back in if we see another confirmation. For this one, I would want to see a close above this. That's the most recent lower high. Notice again as well, like I was emphasizing before, it didn't react to the demand, it swept the demand, and now we're seeing the reaction. So this is where you want to pay kind of extra attention, because this is typically where price is going to react to or from. So yeah, let's see if it can push up from here and break that structure. Yeah, there you go. So now we've had that change of character, right? In terms of entries, we have this area of demand. Let me just zoom out to 15 as well and see what that looks like. Yeah, so this area looks good. Notice as well, like when you have all of this momentum, again, you're not expecting price to, for example, pull back to this area of demand. So you would enter from kind of this more premium level, as long as it has some liquidity above, which in this case it does. And as always, 1 to 3 TP. Let's see how this goes. Nice. Notice as well how it's kind of moving back quite slowly and correctively. It's grabbed some liquidity into the POI. Yeah, there we go. Nice. So this would have been quite a tough hold because we had it rally to 2.9%, then pull back to break even. But as you guys know, I don't make my trades break even for that very reason. When I tested break even, I personally found that it's actually more profitable with this 1 to 3 mechanical TP just to hold, to stop loss or take profit, and not to manage the trade. So, right, let's have a look. So we've now had One thing I want to be careful of here is this bit of liquidity. Once that's taken, notice how this is the last bit of liquidity before you have this imbalance. So price may want to react from it. However, at the moment, it's still overall bullish. So what we could see and look for, if we look within this range, this whole region here is kind of like an hourly demand. So let's see how price reacts from this area. I'm going to mark on this as well. All right, let's have a look how it reacts here. It is reacting, but yeah, there you go. So it broke into new highs, but we didn't get a confirmation here. So no trade, unfortunately. Next region, maybe this demand. All right, nice reaction so far. Let's see if it gives a confirmation. Yeah, there you go. So there's the confirmation. We've had change of character. This area of imbalanced demand, quite a huge area, to be honest. And we've just missed the limit. Limit order should have been on this area, like this, with 1 to 3 TP. Let's see if it pulls back. If it does pull back, I'll get back in. Yeah, there we go. So we're in. Let's see if this area holds. Yeah, nice. There we go. TP hit on that one. Very nice trade. Reaction from demand, change of character, imbalanced demand on the M5 chart, and 1 to 3 mechanical TP. Very nice. Want to be a bit careful here because price has now swept that liquidity, so we might see a bigger retracement of some kind, maybe from this area of supply as well to the left. Want to be careful with that. I might consider some sells from here. It would be counter trend, but what my thought process here is that you could still say this was a change of character, and you could say that this was just a retracement for lower prices. And one of the things I like to emphasize all the time, and I'm a big proponent of, is reacting to price, not predicting exactly where it's going to go. So we might be wrong about the buys, right? So we've kind of got to stay open to the potential sells as well. Let's see how it reacts to this though. Yeah, there you go. So you're now getting that sell-off from this area. What day was this on? Tuesday. All right, so let's see if we can see a pullback into the supply. Again, I'm just going to enter on that last bit of liquidity before the supply and go for a 1 to 3. Slightly riskier, like I said, because it is counter trend, but let's have a look. Doesn't look like it wants to pull back. What I'm also going to do here is zoom out and just see where we could see price react from, because it could, like I said, it could still continue up. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to cancel this sell limit now. Obviously, it didn't pull back. Yeah, if we look on 4 hour, this is interesting. So we've seen, again, you could consider this a 4 hour change of character. If we get rid of these markings, you can see price has retraced into a discount, grabbed these previous lows that it reacted from, and it is also reacting to a 4 hour demand right here. Let's see how it reacts to this. As always, lower time frame kind of guides you in terms of if price does want to flip back bullish from here. So yeah, there you can see volume coming in, very clear change of character. We've got this area of imbalanced demand. As always, I would usually enter on this last bit of liquidity before the imbalance, but with this, the risk reward isn't going to be worth it. So I'm going to refine to the demand instead, and we will see if price pulls back for us. All right, nice. So we're in. Let's have a look. All right, demand is holding at the moment. Might look for a scale in if we can make the first trade break even. Reason for this, we've had, if we're just following the structure here, break a structure, pull back, break a structure, pull back into the demand, sweep of the previous liquidity. We've had our change of character. Nice. Entry on this one. Just below this last bit of liquidity before the imbalance. See how this goes. Oh, damn. 1 pip away from stop loss there, but we managed to stay in. Again, smart stop loss placement. I don't just have it immediately below the low. I like to leave a little bit more room, particularly on gold, which tends to do stuff like this where it grabs the previous liquidity before moving. But yeah, nice. This first trade is, yeah, now it's hit TP. So again, just looking to follow this structure up. We've now had price pull back, break this main high, right? We zoom out to 4 hour, what can we see? Yeah, just essentially now looking for, there's not really anything stopping price from coming back towards this high. So just looking for more longs. Next point of interest, this whole sort of region here is a demand. Nice, price left some liquidity above it as well. Actually, I think I'm going to refine the demand a little bit less to this whole region here, because this is where the last bit of liquidity has been taken. So you could see a reaction out of this area. Yep, there we go. We've seen our change of character, grab of the lows, change of character. I'm not going to be too precise with this one, but I'm just going to wait for a pullback into this. The reason why I'm not being too precise with this one, by the way, is just because even if we enter here, the risk to reward is still worth it. So I'm just going to wait for a small retracement. Yeah, there we go. We're tagged into that. Pinpoint entry so far as well. See if it wants to continue. Yeah, nice. There we go. So TP hit out of that area. We've now also seen all of the lower time frame shift bullish, including the M30 that we're on here. Nice. Looking for more buying opportunities here. See if price can pull back a bit. All right, it did, but there was no entry there. It just continued to rally. Something like this might be nice. So we've seen price pull back, grab this inducement into the demand. Yeah, nice. Let's see how it reacts to this area. Yeah, there you go. We've had our confirmation. Let's see if it can pull back into the demand. Actually, let me look on M15 here. Yeah, so this whole region is the demand. And it's in a discount, so nice extra confluence there. Nope, no pullback on that one. That's fine. Accurate analysis, but no entry, unfortunately. Maybe here, this could be quite nice. We've seen it pull back, grab some liquidity, tap into the demand. It has also broken this main structure, actually. So all of this becomes internal. It's no longer relevant. yeah, I'm going to see how it reacts to this area here. Nope, seems like it wants to come lower. Next region, this whole area here is like a 4-hour demand zone. See how it reacts to this. Nice, there we go. So that's perfect. Change of character. We've got an area imbalanced. I'm going to enter on this one in this case because it's a bit more discounted. There we go. Quite a slow and corrective pullback, which is what I want to see, really. All right, no, little loss on that one. Next buy zone would have been this liquidity here, which is the low of that 4-hour demand zone. Let's see if it breaks structure from here. All right, no, it's coming a bit lower. Next zone. Okay, so it's coming back for some of this previous liquidity now. This area, this would be nice. So notice how this region here was a daily demand. Price has now grabbed the daily demand low. Gonna monitor here for an entry. There we go. So daily demand zone swept, overall bullish market. Change of character. Let's see how this goes. If we get a pullback, sorry, this should be change of character. All right, there we go. Nice, we're tagged in. Let's see how this goes. Holding so far. Oh, damn. So ran like 2.5%. Then stop this out. This could just be a regrab of the lows. I'm going to look for a re-entry here if it does break the structure again. Yeah, I think we were just a bit too early. So it's regrabbed this low. It's presented another change of character. Let's see, in terms of entries on this, I'm not really too keen on just setting a limit here. I'm going to wait for a retracement. Maybe if we can see this low get taken. Nope, seems like price is just continuing up. I think this is a good place to end the session though, guys. So before we do that, let's have a look at the analytics so far. We have taken 11 trades, 72% win rate, which is pretty decent. As you guys know, 1 to 3 risk reward on every single trade. Max losses we had in a row was 2, which is good. Good drawdown management there. I won't go through all of these statistics, but you guys can go through them in your own time if you want to pause the screen here. But yeah, solid results so far, guys. If you want to see me backtest gold over the 2025 price action instead, I'll drop the playlist somewhere up here on the screen if you want to see some more trade examples. But thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.